Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. You have to be extremely careful when giving an order to a soldier because you can face some malicious compliance. In our first story, it actually got them to change their behavior to be a little less obnoxious after realizing they were being unreasonable. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I'll show you how secure I can make this ship. This happened about 5 years ago. I was a military member in the Navy. The ship I was posted to was a ship that sailed a lot. Before leaving for any sails, we had to make sure that our ship was secure for sea. Basically, you don't want stuff lying around the ship when you get into the ocean. So everything has to be tied down and secured. After doing this constantly for a year or so, our crew got pretty good at doing this. Our original chief was always happy with the work, maybe a few minor issues, never had any complaints, and let us do the rest of our work to get the ship ready for sail. Our main job was techs. Unfortunately, our chief retired and he was replaced with a real hard butt. We had a 2-month trip coming up in a week, and our chief informed us that he wanted our spaces to be secured ASAP. I informed guys about the Secure for Sea on that Monday, and they worked on this all day. On Tuesday, our chief came in the office telling us it wasn't to his satisfaction, gave us a blast of crap about the quality of work, and wanted us to keep working on it. Every single morning, we were never to his satisfaction. It was at a point where all our pins were Velcroed to something, but still not to his satisfaction. But he wasn't telling us what to fix. He told us on Friday that he expected us to complete this while at sea Monday night. Over the weekend, a couple of us had to stay and work on some of the equipment. We were talking about the whole Secure for Sea issue. Then I pointed out that all the spaces were completely secure except for one. Our department's chief's and PO's office. Usually they took care of this, so we decided to help them out and secure their office for them. I mean, why not? I have to work over the weekend. We grabbed a roll of rope and grabbed a full pack of duct tape. We tied and taped everything we could find, their jackets, their computers, including keyboard and mouse, their chairs, etc. It took us about half a day, 2 guys to secure everything in that small office, and we made sure it was over the top. One of our P2s even walked in on us taping everything, and he laughed and said they deserve it, and just walked away. We even took an old pen holder, filled it with old dried up pens, and filled up the pen holder with glue just to make sure they wouldn't say that we were wasting consumables, and we hid the good pen holder with pens. On Monday morning, we were leaving for that sail. Everyone had to be on the ship at 7:30. I was standing outside of the office waiting to debrief my boss about the work we did over the weekend, and to tell him if there's anything our captain needs to be aware of about the maintenance/testing we completed. While waiting for my boss, our chief shows up. His first words were, "What the F?" One of our POs walks in and starts laughing. Our chief looked at him, and the PO said, "I guess this space is secured for sea," while laughing. After a week at sea, we were still hearing our chief and PO1 swearing about the stuff they needed being taped or tied up. We didn't get in any trouble, and he backed off. After a few months at sea with us, he started to slow down the hard butt role, and he was a great supervisor. He was a hard butt when he needed a hard butt, but also stuck up for his department when we needed him to. And our second story. That time my coworker lost his faith in customers. I guess to start up, I should mention the business I'm in. We're a small business in Florida that maintains generators for large corporations/buildings like airports or hospitals. After Hurricane Irma, there was a rule in place saying that nursing homes/medical care facilities have to have a working generator at all times. This opened an onslaught of the stingiest, rudest, and most bitter customers we've had so far. A lot of these facilities love to cut corners and save a couple of bucks in ways that may not necessarily be morally acceptable or quite legal, and don't like that they're now required to pay extra money in order to keep their clients alive and healthy. This is the story of one such guy, whom I will call D-Face, or DF for short. D-Face had to get his facility's generator fixed after a failed inspection. I think he knew it was broken, he just didn't want to get it fixed until he was told to, and called us up. He got a hold of my supervisor, and since we're the only two people in our department, we tend to put calls on speaker. I was next to him for this part and heard everything. They figured out what generator he had, an outdated POS that just barely met state standards, but was about as old as I am. And my supervisor promised to send him the quote via email. He made it up based on our computer's prices and sent it out. Now, my supervisor likes to save the customer money where he can, and after checking our manufacturer's website, he figured he'd be able to buy it cheaper on eBay. Something to note, we buy our parts at cost, and even after our markup, we still sell those parts significantly cheaper than retail price. Sometimes we can get older parts cheaper on Amazon or eBay, but this is a fairly rare occurrence. He told me to call the customer to tell them that we'd be able to knock $300 off the price. Me. Hi, this is OP from a general generator company. Can I speak to D-Face? DF. This is him. What do you need? Me. Well, I just wanted to let you know that we were able to find this part for cheaper. Your original total was going to be $2,100, but now I can send you a new invoice for $1,800. Is your default email okay? DF. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much. So I remake the invoice for $1,800, send it to him, and wait for him to send it back signed so we can schedule the work. Except he doesn't. We don't hear back from him for a week, and then he gets transferred back to me. Me. Hi, this is OP from Generic Generator Company. How can I help you? DF. Hi, OP. This is D-Face. I received an $1,800 invoice from you, but your boss called and said it'd be just $700. I need you to fix it so I can sign it and send it to you. Me. Oh, actually, that was me. After pulling up your account, I see that we were able to find a cheaper part for you, but the total's still going to be $1,800. Would you like me to resend the itemized invoice so you can see exactly what you're paying for? DF is flustered at this point. No, supervisor was actually the one who called me. I just need you to honor what he said and change it for me. Now keep in mind, this call was on speaker and supervisor is at the desk directly next to mine. I make eye contact with him and he shakes his head, obviously annoyed. Me. You know what, sir? Let me transfer you to him. So I put him on hold for 10 minutes, then take him off since my supervisor can hear him fine on my phone anyway. Basically, this dude starts getting increasingly aggressive while he tells my supervisor that he was told it'd be $700 and he wouldn't pay a cent more. My supervisor explains how the rest of the parts alone cost more than that, and he also needs to pay for our technician to install the damn things. DF absolutely loses his crap about how he could buy the parts himself and look up a YouTube tutorial to install it. Yeah, right. And supervisor tells him that under no circumstances will he be lowering the price further. So DF hangs up. The guy calls back a week later saying that he'll pay the $1,800, but surprise, surprise, the part on eBay is no longer there. Have fun paying full price, a-hole. I feel sorry for people who have to live in whatever kind of cut rate facility this guy's running. And our last story. You should always pay your accountant, especially if you got skeletons in your closet. My buddy's an accountant. He has his own firm. His biggest clients are small to medium-sized businesses. Well, he had a client who owned 4 different clubs and bars in 2 different cities. Client was always shady, always slow on payment, etc. I was also a customer of one of the bars. They had a poker game that I would play in on Thursdays. Well, one day I'm at my buddy's house having a few beers and he's complaining about non-payment from a client. I ask who. He doesn't want to say, but it's really bugging him because it's a significant chunk of change. He then says the name. We'll call him Scott. I'm like, wow, Scott isn't paying you? He then says Scott's saying business is way down, and I think that's odd. I've been going to one Scott place and every Thursday is packed. My buddy looks at me and goes, really? I go, yeah. He does this new cash discount. I think 15% off your tab if you pay cash. My buddy goes, really? I tell him about my experience at Scott's bar, and eventually the topic changes. A few weeks later, my buddy calls me up and says, you going to Scott's bar to play poker? I said, yeah. He says, can I join? I go, sure. He joins, we get a few drinks in us, lose our money at poker. My house is closer. He decides to crash there. On the way over, he breaks down his theory. He thinks Scott is vastly underreporting his revenue. The reason why he suspects Scott is offering cash discounts is because cash is easier to hide. He says he's going to do a deep dive on Scott's finances. My friend tells me his plan is to go to all 4 of Scott's establishments, get the prices he charges at each place, pieces together how much alcohol he's buying versus how much Scott is saying his revenue equates to. He looks up how much Scott is paying in payroll, rent, bills, etc. Keep in mind he has access to all this info. And he determines that Scott is basically using his credit card receipts plus a little bit of cash to cover his cost of his business to include rent, payroll, insurance, liquor, food, etc. However, based upon the amount of products he's selling, he's suspecting Scott is underreporting his total income by about 35 to 40%. He goes back into Scott's books even more, and he figures in the last year, Scott's been underreporting his sales by 35 to 40%, but he's also been underreporting his sales by at least 20 to 25% for years on end. Simply put, there's no way Scott's going through as much product and as much alcohol as he's purchasing and having the revenue numbers that he's claiming. He's underreporting his sales to his accountant, which means he's also underreporting his earnings to the IRS. By this point, Scott owes my friend thousands of dollars that he hasn't paid. He says his total amount could buy a brand new motorcycle. He never gave me an exact number. My friend decides, F getting repayment from Scott, let's get repayment from the IRS through the whistleblower program. He's estimating Scott's underreported his revenue by millions of dollars over the course of years. The whistleblower fees he'd earned from the IRS far outweigh the amount Scott owes him. The IRS will pay between 15 and 30% of what they collect. So with the assistance of a lawyer, my friend gathers all the evidence he has Scott's underreporting to the IRS and files a whistleblower report with the IRS. During this time, my friend fires Scott as a client for non-payment. Now, this part gets boring because there's a lot of legal wrangling and back and forth. This went back and forth. However, eventually the IRS comes down on Scott, and they come down hard. It's estimated that Scott underreported his income to the IRS by about $4.5 million. Now, my friend never told me how much the IRS was able to recoup, but Scott's businesses are no longer his businesses, and $4.5 million would put the whistleblower reward at $675,000 to $1.3 million. Keep in mind it's based on what the IRS collects, not the amount that's reported. I've asked my friend how much he got in the end, and he simply says, I no longer have a mortgage, and it would have been much cheaper for Scott to just pay me. Good on him. It's infuriating when people don't pay for your time and work. Very disrespectful. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.